You probably didn't plan to own 10 pairs of leggings. Most people don't. You buy one. You wear them constantly. Maybe they're the most comfortable pair you've ever owned. A few months later, a new color comes out, then another, then a seasonal collection. Before long, your drawer is filled with leggings that all look strangely similar, which raises an obvious question. How does one pair quietly become 10? Most people assume the answer is quality. Lululemon simply makes great products. And to be fair, they do. The fabric is comfortable, the fit is flattering. Many customers genuinely love wearing them. But what if that isn't the real reason collections keep growing? Because surprisingly, Lululemon isn't just competing with other athletic brands, it's competing with the version of yourself you hope to become. Which raises an interesting question. Why does walking into a Lululemon store feel so different from walking into almost any other clothing store? Think about it. The bright natural lighting, the perfectly folded displays, the calm music, the smiling educators, even the mirrors somehow seem inviting instead of intimidating. Nothing feels rushed, nothing feels crowded, everything quietly communicates the same message. People like you belong here. That's not an accident. It's the first trick. And once you notice it, you start realizing the store isn't simply displaying leggings, it's carefully displaying an identity. Take a look around. The mannequins rarely look exhausted. They're not sitting on the couch after a long day. They're hiking, stretching, running, practicing yoga, meeting friends for coffee, walking confidently through everyday life. The clothing isn't presented as something you wear. It's presented as something people like that wear. Which raises another question. If the leggings are the product, why spend so much time selling the lifestyle around them? Because surprisingly, our brains don't just buy objects. We buy stories. And one of the most powerful stories we ever buy is the story we tell ourselves about who we are, or maybe who we're becoming. That's why buying a pair of leggings can feel strangely different from buying a plain t-shirt. One purchase quietly says, I needed new clothes. The other quietly whispers, this is the kind of person I am now. That's a very different feeling, and once that feeling becomes attached to the product, something fascinating begins to happen. The leggings stop feeling like clothing. They start feeling like proof. Proof that you're taking your health seriously. Proof that you're investing in yourself. Proof that you're becoming more disciplined. Proof that you're becoming the person you've been trying to become. Which raises an even bigger question. If a pair of leggings can start representing who we are, what happens when one pair no longer feels like enough? If the leggings are really selling an identity, something interesting starts happening after your very first purchase. Because buying the first pair is usually the hardest decision. The second one feels much easier, which raises an obvious question. Why? After all, you already own a pair. You already know they're comfortable. You already know they fit well. So why does buying another color suddenly feel so reasonable? Because your brain quietly changes the question. The first time, you ask, should I buy these? The second time, you're asking something completely different. Which color should I get next? That's a subtle shift, but it changes everything, because the moment the decision becomes which one instead of whether at all, the collection has quietly begun. And that's the second trick. Most people think they're shopping for clothing. They're actually reinforcing a decision they've already made. Think about the colors: black, navy, espresso, bone, olive. None of them feel outrageous, none of them feel unnecessary. Each new pair feels just different enough to solve a problem the last pair couldn't. One matches darker tops, one is better for fall, one feels more versatile, one is for travel, one is for lounging. Individually, every purchase makes perfect sense, which raises another question. If every purchase feels logical, why do so many closets end up looking almost identical? Because Lululemon rarely asks you to replace your leggings. They encourage you to expand your collection. That's a very different strategy. Replacing something feels expensive, adding something feels harmless, and psychologically, collections follow different rules than necessities. Think about people who collect books, sneakers, coffee mugs, vinyl records. Each new item doesn't erase the last one, it adds to the story. And that's exactly what starts happening here. Every new pair quietly becomes another chapter in the person you're becoming. Not because the old leggings stopped working, because this new pair represents another version of you. The traveler, the runner, the woman who's finally staying consistent with Pilates, the one who always prioritizes herself. The clothing hasn't changed, the story has, which creates another fascinating question. If the story is what's changing, How much of the purchase is actually about the leggings? Because here's the part most people never notice. The excitement rarely comes from wearing the new pair. It comes from buying it. For a brief moment, standing at the register, or clicking place order. It feels like you're investing in a better version of yourself, and that's an incredibly powerful feeling. But it also hides something surprisingly important. Because if buying the product briefly makes us feel like we've become that person, what happens when that feeling quietly wears off? The strange part is, there's nothing wrong with buying quality clothing. If a pair of leggings fits well, lasts for years, and genuinely makes you feel confident, there's real value in that. Because that's not the trap. The trap begins the moment buying another pair starts feeling like personal growth. Those are two completely different things, which raises an uncomfortable question. How do you know the difference? The answer quietly appears inside your closet. Imagine opening the drawer where you keep your leggings. There they are. Black, navy, espresso, olive, maybe another black pair. A color you forgot you even owned. Now ask yourself something surprisingly simple. How many of them could disappear tomorrow without changing your life at all? For most people, the answer is probably more than they'd like to admit. Not because they made bad purchases, because every purchase made perfect sense at the time. That's what makes this trap so effective. It never asks you to make one terrible financial decision. It simply asks you to make one reasonable decision over and over and over again, which leads to one of the most overlooked ideas in personal finance. People usually think wealth grows because of the money you invest, and that's true. But there's another side to compounding that almost nobody talks about. The money you never spend never has to earn its way back. Imagine buying one pair of Lululemon leggings for $128. Now imagine owning 10 pairs. That's over $1,200. Then add the matching sports bras, the jackets, the belt bags, the accessories. Suddenly, what felt like small purchases scattered across several years quietly becomes several $1,000s. Which raises another question. What if those purchases had stayed invested instead? Not because investing is exciting, but because time quietly rewards money that's left alone. The interesting part isn't that leggings cost money. Everything costs money. The interesting part is what repeated identity purchases quietly cost your future. Every duplicate purchase isn't just another expense. It's money that never gets the chance to compound. Not because leggings are expensive, because habits are, and habits repeat. That's the closet compounding trap. Not one expensive purchase, hundreds of small purchases made by someone trying to become the person they already were. Because here's the irony. The disciplined woman wasn't hiding inside the next pair of leggings. She was already the one choosing to show up for herself. The confident woman wasn't stitched into the fabric. She was already there before she walked into the store. The leggings never created that identity. They simply reflected it. And that's an incredibly freeing realization. Because once you stop asking products to prove who you are, they become exactly what they were always meant to be. Just products. Some beautiful, some practical, some worth buying, some not, without carrying the impossible job of validating your life. That's a completely different way to shop. Not because you stop appreciating nice things, but because nice things stop deciding how you feel about yourself. There's something surprisingly peaceful about that. The next time you're about to buy another pair, pause for just a second. Ask yourself one question. If nobody ever saw me wearing these, would I still want them? Sometimes, the answer will be yes, and that's perfectly okay. Sometimes, the answer will surprise you, because once the purchase stops being about proving something, it becomes much easier to recognize what you genuinely love, and what you were only hoping would change how you felt. That's a kind of financial freedom most people never talk about. Not because it makes you spend nothing, but because it helps you spend intentionally. The people who build lasting wealth don't always buy fewer beautiful things. They simply stop asking beautiful things to tell them they're enough. How many pairs of leggings do you honestly own right now? And be honest, have you worn all of them this month?